Is anybody talking? I can't hear anything.
Apparently not.
Yeah, apparently we
Here
all
we
got
go.
the cat got our
Now I hear
phone.
you.
Yep.
I hear you. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Yeah. National Sound Check Day. It was 12/12. 1 2 1 2. I'll turn my video back on so you can watch me eat salsa and chips. They're pretty good.
That's two of the food groups right there.
Well, it has all the fat you need, so that works.
Here's the other food group.
I was going to say that looks like a Miller Lite, but I don't think it is. Whatever it is. Oh, Corona Extra. Good stuff.
Yeah. It's the local stuff. Didn't have enough time to stop in and see you on the way through Texas yesterday, but we're drinking the good beer in Mexico and eating the good food. So take that.
Okay, well, I didn't know you were coming through Texas. You must have been coming from Mexico to Dallas.
Yeah.
And then
Well, now this time we came through Houston, and I'm looking at it and said, "Geez, it's only a 3 hour drive." But my wife said, "I don't know. We'll see on the way home." And I know what that means.
yeah, well, we would have loved to have seen you, so that would have been fun. We had lots of families, grandparents, parents, and kids yesterday. It was a bit of a zoo. I think you get a bunch of people who have come for Christmas break with their grandparents or something, and Ben Franklin had it right that guests and fish start to stink after about 3 days. So let's get them out of the house, send them down to the museum. Let's get them out of here.
All right. Steve, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to turn over the hosting of the meeting to you because I'm going to leave it on, but I'm going to have to go in the other room. So you you may want or need to shut it off when you leave. I guess I could probably turn it off a little bit later, but anyway, just in case we need to mute any microphones or anything, so that somebody's there watching and can deal with it. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. I just have a question. I wonder, we only have 10 participants.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we should proceed.
So there's 9 more in the waiting room.
Oh, okay.
Letting.
There we go.
And let's see who's on YouTube. Hang on just a second. Nobody on YouTube. I didn't get to send out a lot of meeting announcements. So anyway, your fault.
You guys think?
We're already here, so I might as well do it.
Let's go ahead and do it.
If Mike wants to postpone his presentation for a bigger audience, that's fine. But I mean, we can BS. See what's new at the museum.
If you want to go on and do your usual parts, then if we don't pick up anymore, maybe you'd want to put it off. That's fine with me.
Well, to be fair to you, too.
Yeah, right.
More people may just all of a sudden show up. I mean, that tends to happen.
Yeah. It's like every time we do this, something else is different. The switch to shut off the waiting room so people don't get trapped there seems to be invisible today, and I will continue to look for that.
It seems like every Zoom meeting is some kind of adventure.
And you know what? I say that, and I also complain about it sometimes, but damn, when we were doing video, 40 years ago, this would have been just a pipe dream.
Well, this is incredible. We've actually been using Zoom as a remote broadcast for football games and stuff. It works great.
Well, I did a 3-camera broadcast from my driveway at one time, so you know, that's got to be better than what some networks could have done at some point in the past.
So let
And
me,
it looked,
I
probably
mean,
looked better too.
oh, I'm sure it was better resolution.
I remember seeing there's a video on YouTube of some, I guess it's one of the broadcast days follow-up to the Kennedy assassination, and they were cutting from the studio in New York out to the local studio in Dallas or wherever it was, and they didn't bother fading to black, or they just didn't think of it, and the pictures just scrambled and rolled at every cut because they had no way to synchronize the signals back then, and that was the networks. Pretty wild.
You know, NBC made WBAP, which was the Fort Worth version of NBC. They made them shut off the color burst on their signal because they had color cameras and NBC did not. So it was a little embarrassing. Let's go to Fort Worth and it's in color. Uh-oh.
Steve, I have a tiny announcement to make when we do start.
Okay,
If you remember to toss it over to me, or I can just toss it out right now. It's
you might as well. I don't think we're
Yeah.
gonna have, well, we're up to 23. Yeah, it's almost 5 after anyway. Why
Yeah.
don't you go ahead?
a lot of us probably knew him, and I'm sure a lot of us were utterly spellbound by the two presentations that John Turner did here, one on the 2-inch quadruplex video recorders and one on the 1-inch helical scan video recorders, and the other kids' toys that he had in his collection in the back of his shop. And John passed away a couple of weeks ago. So that's a breadth and a depth of knowledge that I don't know that we'll never recover that. And the second part is another sobering caution to all of us, because John had, if you saw those presentations, John had just dozens of rare 2-inch quad video recorders and umpteen dozens of smaller format machines and cameras going back to everything. And I didn't realize that he had business partners, Turner Engineering. I guess his partners were more silent than I knew. And John was 80 years old, and I and everybody else who heard this were just stunned that one day when he was out, they just threw all his stuff in the trash. Everything. It was unbelievable. I mean, I think that was that might have been what got to him, but because he was really he was big with the systems engineering, but he also loved the old stuff. I mean, you could tell if you watched, or if you haven't seen him, go back and watch those two videos that where he took us on a tour of his thing. So anyway, I mean, and he and I had projects in the planning and whatnot. Well, if you got projects in the planning, folks, hurry them up because you don't get forever.
Well, last summer, actually it was a year ago, last fall, he sent us 2 RCA 2-inch machines, an Ampex 1-inch machine, and an RCA film chain. And it was very nice of him to do that. I don't know if he knew what was going on or not.
He felt completely blindsided.
I can understand that. I sure would.
I thought that was I thought it was bad enough that he decided to sell the business and was going to lose that beautiful big back room with all this stuff in it. But I figured he'd do something, and well, he didn't do anything. They did it to him, and that's hard to even imagine. It's hard to take, and yeah, he found it apparently hard to take. So that's sad.
It's very sad. I remember he did a walkthrough tour of his facility on one of these ETF things, and that was pretty interesting. And he had a lot of stuff. He was a nice
Never
guy on
had-
top of it.
Yep. And he was the guy who could go in, I won't say without a schematic, but he ran his old machines without the covers on all the time with oscilloscopes hooked up to him, getting transfers out of tapes that haven't existed. Some of them since before I was born, almost.
It's really sad.
On that cheery note, yeah, let's get on to nicer things. More people
Okay.
coming in, more people coming in. Hang on, let me just get them in a second. And then I'll go back and try to figure out how to let them keep coming in automatically.
We got some background noise too. Somebody,
That's me. I'm gonna set
that's
my,
you, okay.
yeah, we're visiting relatives. I gotta,
Gotcha.
everybody's admiring the new baby. And I'm the geek who's sitting on the early television museum meeting, so yay me. Hang on just a second. And,
By the way, Dave, I liked your dance video that you sent me.
I got a memory like a goldfish. What did I send you?
You apparently were listening to my radio station online, and Let's Dance came on apparently, and apparently.
Oh,
So you sent me, apparently it was your wedding video or something like that.
that was our wedding song, yeah. And my wife heard your radio station and she said, "Hey, that sounds like a pretty good radio station." I go, "Well, of course it is."
The weird thing is the very next day after you sent that, I was at the museum and I was showing a tape recorder to somebody because we keep one plugged in because kids have never seen a tape recorder running. And I pushed the play button and guess what? Let's Dance came out and the couple that was with me that I was giving a tour to started dancing. I was like, okay, okay, this is familiar. They dance about like I do too, and about like you do.
It's,
Shut up now.
yeah, it's ironic that yeah, what is it? Dance with Me by
Yeah, Dance with Me is what it
It's
was.
ironic that that's our song because I dance like a white guy who's a radio collector, you know.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Somebody said I suffer from white man's disease, no rhythm.
Okay,
Dave?
are we ready to get started? Okay, welcome to the December meeting of the online meeting of the Early Television Museum community. Want to thank the New Jersey Antique Radio Club for sponsoring this meeting and providing our Zoom feed. It's much appreciated. Just a reminder, mute your microphone if you're not talking, so we don't have any background noise. Why don't we start with if there's anybody on the meeting tonight that is new or hasn't been around for a while that would like to introduce themselves.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
My name's Paul. I'm from Australia in Melbourne. I've been subscribing to your emails for many years, for a couple of years now. I found you on a research. I wrote a book this year that's been published internationally, and as part of my research, I referred to your site, looking at old retro TV information and such. I'm a retired person now. I'm in my 60s. I don't know if anyone else is in Australia on this meet, but yeah. So I thought look a bit curious of all the stuff you're doing and the old retro TV stuff, and I think you mentioned about VCRs as well. So I'm not sure if you talk about those a lot. I'm that person that passed sadly. I think you mentioned something of him having expertise on helical scan type VCRs, but yeah, that's my passion, and I've been doing it since the age of probably 10 years of age, so 54 years now. having a interest in electronics. And that's a summary of me.
Well, thank you. Welcome, Paul. Glad you could join us.
Yeah.
Hopefully someday you can come over to the States and tour the got a bunch of wonderful museums.
Yeah,
Early
I've been
television.
to America many years ago, back in the 1980s.
Oh, you did. Chuck Conrad's museum is certainly worth a trip. So if you come back, be sure to go see it.
Love to have you come. Australia has been about the closest. We've had people from Australia come several times, and they
Yeah.
liked it. So
Yeah, no, America is really interesting. I was back there in the time, 1987. I went over there for my mate, and I haven't been since I've been married, so we rarely go overseas now. But yeah, yeah, my memories are very good of America. In those times, I guess when I think your technology was way above us in the 70s. Like when you had VCRs and color TVs, we were sort of like a 5 to 6 year lag in the 60s, and we finally caught up with you when globalization happened. Yeah, but I've always had a fascination for electronics and particularly analog electronics. My engineering degree was hardware electronics, so I'm not a software guy, more like hardware stuff. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's really interesting. So I thought I'd join this group because there's not many of them around.
you also
Great.
need to come to Hilliard too. So
Yeah.
And if
because
your
you'll see
trip,
stuff there that you won't see anywhere else. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
if your U.S. trip involves a trip to Washington, D.C., come and see the National Capitol Radio and TV Museum. It's
Yeah.
about
That one
10
too.
miles out of town, and we don't
Yeah.
have enough TVs in there, but we got a lot of electronics.
Yeah, I've been to the Smithsonian Institute and I saw a few scientific things there. Was it the what was it? I'm just trying to recall now. It was an Oak Ridge accelerator. Back in the 1930s. There was another thing I saw yeah, all the science stuff was all there, really interesting. So yeah, I always had an inkling to that sort of thing.
Fantastic. Anybody else want to introduce themselves?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
This is Terry Harvey, and I've been to Hilliard a couple of times actually over the years, but that was actually a long time ago. I'm currently up in Canada. And I remember helping you with the when you got the prototype set in that was actually doing field alternate line or no, field alternate phase. Remember the 52 set?
Yes, absolutely.
And I've recently I'm still working actually. I've worked mostly for broadcasters with the BBC and for many years with PBS. And I'm still working. I'm actually with Imagine Communications and making digital master control systems. But I've recently restored a CT100, which I'm very fortunate to have a good rebuilt 15GP22. And so the picture is pretty good. And I've been following you and your museum for a number of years and quite interested in actually listening and participating. And as a matter of fact, just one other thing is that I was engaged in the as pentode in Video Karma on the debate about the late 30s video carrier spacing.
Really.
Yes, because I actually learned a bit about that, and I have a few things I wanted to share that because it's been trying to piece together from mid 30s up until 1941 when the NTSC standard was approved with 525 and FM sound. What actually went on and what was in the minds of the RCA engineers in the late 30s, and what was the transition times between 343 line to 441 line to vestigial sideband, etc. And it's a lot clearer in my mind. And I don't know if anyone else has actually been following that at all, but I'd be quite interested to engage in any discussion on that because to me, it's been quite fascinating. Sorry, I can't hear you there.
Yeah, I forgot to unclick. You probably find people here who would be very interested in that. Also, would you consider making a presentation?
Oh, I'd be happy to.
Well, why don't you contact me or Dave Sika? Just at the museum's probably the easiest way, info@earlytelevision.org.
Okay.
And we can work on that because we're always looking for people to make presentations to this group.
Okay, I would be happy to on, and it's okay if I suggest some topics.
Absolutely.
I'd be glad to. But anyway, I'm pleased to be able to participate tonight and to chat with you.
Great. Thanks for being here. Do we have anybody else?
I guess I could say hello. I don't have quite the background that some of the rest of you have in the industry and stuff, but I'm Gary Strait. I'm from New York State, and I went out to your convention last May after getting to know the hobby a little bit by following Bob Anderson on YouTube. And that came from a long history and stuff with TVs. Back when I was about 14 years old, after my freshman year of high school, my parents bought me a Heathkit TV set that I built and got it working. And over the years, it eventually stopped working. And after I retired 2 years ago, I pulled it back out and I got it repaired and restored and working again. And I posted online about that. And some people suggested I look at these people on YouTube. So that's kind of how I ended up connecting with you folks eventually through Bob Anderson first. And I kind of thought Bob Anderson might be on tonight, but it looks like he's not. He's got an RR359 that he's restoring. I know he's been talking to Steve about that, and I thought he might be calling in tonight, but it looks like he's not on.
No, he is. I've talked to him about, I think he's going to be making a presentation of some sort at our convention again. Because we have an RR359 and the one he's got is missing some stuff. So he wanted to look through ours and see what we had in ours that was missing in his. And he talked about making a presentation about the differences in the two sets. So in any case, I'm pretty sure he's going to be doing something regarding his RR359.
Is that the A versus the B version?
His is the B version.
His is a B version. It was originally an A that was upgraded by RCA to the B version.
And ours is the A version, but they're pretty similar.
Yeah. But he's got chassis pictures from when it was built that shows that it was originally the A version with a 9-inch CRT, and it's one of the ones that RCA upgraded.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting a little bit interested in the habit. I haven't actually restored any old sets yet, but I've been around. I went to your convention last year, and I went to the Vintage Radio and Communication Museum in Connecticut. That's pretty good. They've got quite a few sets there that work, and I've been to InfoAge, New Jersey. They've got a few sets. It's mainly a radio museum, but they got a few sets, a couple of them working. And just recently, I went down to the Museum of Moving Image in New York City also to see what they got. They supposedly have an RR359 there, but they didn't have it on display.
Right. Okay, thanks for joining us tonight. Anybody else? Yeah, I guess not. Welcome. That's a lot of new people. Glad to have you. Let me give a brief report on the museum. This is the beginning of our annual membership drive. Last year, at the end of the year, by the end of the year, we had 270 members, which was a big increase over the year before. And we started the first of this month soliciting memberships or renewals. As of now, we have 170 total, which is very, very good, including 24 new people, 11 lifetime members, a bunch of new sustaining members. the sort of bad news, and I'm not sure it's bad news, but wish it were not this high. But 111 of our last year's members, or this year's members, I should say, 2025, haven't renewed yet. It takes a lot of time for people to catch on. We tend to get a lot more around the convention time. So I think we'll probably end up with a good number of members this year. This, of course, we raised our membership fee to $50. First time we've raised it in the history of the museum, because we have some improvements that we wanted to do. So the money is going to be really, really helpful. The big thing coming up, of course, in May is the convention, May 1st to the 3rd, and we have some preliminary information on the website. We decided to, last year, as those of you who came to the convention know, we decided to have everything at the convention. And it worked okay, but there were real issues with the presentations. So I talked to the Hilliard Arts Center, which we've used for the last several years, for the presentations and also for lunch and dinner, and worked out a deal with them to rent the space just for the afternoon. So we're going to be having the presentations at the Art Center, which will be much nicer than having at the museum, especially if we had bad weather, which you never know. It could be blazing hot or freezing cold that time of year. And as we know from last year, it could rain. So I think that'll be a nice compromise. We're also improving the layout of the warehouse, moving the stage and so forth and improving the sound system for the auction. So anyway, it should be a nice event. We'll have registration will start about February 1st, and we'll keep adding information to the website as we make decisions. One thing we're always looking for is presentations for the convention. So if you have one you'd like to give, get in touch with us. We're really interested in getting a good line of presentations involving anything technology, history, collecting, any of those subjects would be great. Anybody got any questions or comments about what I've just talked about? Okay.
Just one
Well,
question.
yeah.
The membership renewal information, where can that be obtained?
Well, that's on the website, on the home page. There's a link to renewing.
Okay, I'll look there. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Well, I'm going to try to do this. The item that I have at the museum that I want to talk about is not at the museum yet, but it's interesting enough. We just had it donated to us. We have a page on the website that I will try to share. Let's see, entire screen. Can you see this now?
Yeah, it says Zoom on it.
Okay, good. I'm not on the right page, obviously. So let me get to.
We see a page with new displays on the left, or
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, this doesn't let me. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, that's not what I wanted. I thought I had this all set up. Well, I don't. So I'll do it a different way. Okay. Uh, this is a it's the best I can do. Sorry. Oh my this is my the um a prototype RCA 630 TS. It came from a guy who lives in DC, the DC area now. His son, um, Ken Sprinkle, donated the set to the museum. His father, Mel, worked for RCA in 1945-46. And RCA produced 50 of these prototypes. Now, let's see if I can find the side view of it. The chassis is identical to the production 630, but it has no markings on it. It doesn't have any plates or anything on it. RCA apparently made 50 of these and gave them to their engineering people for test purposes. I think in New Jersey. We haven't. We know that Mel Sprinkle lived in New Jersey in 1948. His son isn't sure about that he lived there in 45-46, but I'm pretty sure he did. And it makes sense since the set was made in Camden. RCA would have made these in Camden. That's where he lived. But anyway, they made 50 of them for field test purposes. And they at the end of the test period, they sold them or offered them for sale to the engineers. Mel bought one for $50. His son eventually got it, and it's making its way to the museum. But curious to look at it. I suspect it'll be identical to the production set, other than the cabinet. You can see how the cabinet is different. How much higher. See this place right here. The 630 is only about this high. So this cabinet has an additional. I don't know why they did that. Maybe it's a cabinet they had on hand or something. But anyway,
I have a question.
Yeah.
The thing that strikes me is interesting is it's got what appears to be a double D mask, but maybe looking at it more closely, it's just a square and you're seeing the edges of the tube. And I point that out because the RCA used a rectangular mask up until about 1948, and they went to a double D around 1949. So I don't know if you could zoom in on that. I guess it's a bit difficult at the moment, but
Yes.
it looks like it's just a square with the tube. Is that correct?
Here's the 630.
Yeah.
And
notice it's got the rectangular.
Yeah, it's a double
mask.
D. It's a different mask. That's interesting. I hadn't even noticed that.
But I don't think it's got a mask at all, to tell you the truth. I think it's just got a rectangular opening in front of the tube.
Could very well be. When we get it, we'll take some close-up pictures and put them on our website.
I noticed that the mask looks like it's not symmetrical. The left-hand side looks narrower than the right-hand side. Maybe that's just a photo, though.
I think I manipulated this photo. It was taken I did manipulate it. It was taken at a weird angle, and so I used Photoshop to square it up supposedly. And that's probably what what's causing that.
Yeah, the cabinet looks higher on the right-hand side than the left.
Yeah,
in the
It's
picture.
not. I don't think it
So
is.
I doubt it was, maybe, somebody that was cross-eyed built the cabinet. I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
But the more I look at it, it looks like it hasn't got really a mask at all, other than a rectangular opening
Just
straight
an
onto the
opening.
face of the picture tube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right on that one.
Yeah. Go ahead, look at if you get a chance, go to it's on our website, and you can zoom in on it there. It's a fairly high resolution picture, so you can maybe see some more. But I think you're right.
When that picture first popped up, I thought maybe it was one of the 630 clones, because I mean, all kinds of people did this. Crosley,
Right.
there was a bunch of them that looked exactly like it. So maybe they just, but apparently it wasn't. That was my
Right.
first thought.
Yeah. Hold on just a second. I think maybe I could show you a picture of the back.
I have the picture on your website on my screen, and
You want to share it?
I don't know how.
Okay. Well, let me see. I can get the back up, I think now.
Yeah, I have, and it clearly has a double D mask, and the asymmetry is due to your photoshopping.
There's the back. There's the back view.
Can you make that full screen, Steve, by any chance?
If you tell me how, I can show you this one. I don't know how.
Not sure I can.
What if you click on the square in the upper right-hand corner?
Depending what
There.
you're on, if you're on a computer, down at the very bottom, there's a bunch of participants in chat, react, and then there's one that says share, and you click on that, and it should bring up whatever you have.
No, I can't. I can't get it any better than that.
It's worth a try.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes. So you guys are saying that there's just the frame and then the naked CRT, there's no protective glass like there would have been in the 40s. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what they're saying.
Although it may have a glass in front, but it doesn't have the mask. It doesn't appear to have a mask around the tube other than the square or rectangular opening, perhaps with a glass in front of it.
Yeah, I think it's got glass, but it's just they cut a hole for the tube.
It's the thing is very definitely an ordinary double D mask or opening. No question about it.
And you said what year was this prototype made?
1945.
That's cool because this was before any of the post-war service really went on, and so this was actually then still going with the same equipment that they used for the Empire State Transmitter and everything from the 1930s still, or that went a little bit through the war, of course, and it was used with the same, most likely the same setup that they had and the same coverage area. This is interesting that they had it in New Jersey because that's a little bit farther away from the transmitter.
But remember, the NTSC standard was established in July 1941,
Yes.
so they were well on to 525 with FM sound at that point.
Correct, but the antenna on the Empire State Building, I don't think was changed yet.
Well, it wouldn't have to be changed because it would, providing it fulfilled. I mean, in 1939, they were using the 6 megahertz channel, and it was the same 6 megahertz channel, so the antenna wouldn't have need to have been changed at that point.
Correct.
But it's curious that if it's 1945, how soon did or did it not NBC continue throughout the war? I don't think they stopped television service throughout the war.
Yeah, they scaled down. Yeah. And the TRK-12, as I remember, I have one sitting here in my garage that still needs to be worked on. The TRK-12 was actually outfitted at that time in 1941 to FM reception, and that was a little bit difficult, but it worked to a degree.
I'm not aware that RCA did that.
Yeah.
They did. I have not seen an RCA modification for FM. I've seen a lot of, most of them were just operated with slope detection.
Correct, but there were some technical articles about how you could actually do that, but nobody really did it with the slope detection. It actually worked for the existing receiver.
Yeah.
I have right here, you can actually see it. I'm pointing to it.
Yep.
Inside that TRK 120 cabinet is the chassis, or one of the chassis, that was actually used by RCA itself to test the changes they made during and at the end of the war. And it's definitely no change to the audio circuitry. It's just retuned for slope detection. There are changes to the tuner, which are made in a rather inept manner, and which just shows you how bad that tuner was.
Oh, yeah.
With those octal tubes with the wires too long. I was never able to get it to work on all the modern channels. I don't think they were either. I only have it working properly on 2, 3, and 4.
I agree with you. I never got it to work also. Thank you for, I thought it was my fault because I was too dumb to do it, but now I feel it's like maybe a flaw in the system anyway,
Well, did you check the allocations? Because the thing that I found interesting is that especially with the battle in Armstrong with FM from 42 to 50 megahertz, that they were flipping the channels all over the place. So what was channel 1 before the war, during the war, and after the war seemed to have changed, although maybe because channel 1 was 44 to 50 before the war, I've identified, and it was after the war up until 1948. But to be aware that they messed around with the allocations the FCC did until they finalized it in 1945.
Well, this set that I have has a mishmash of the ones that they were trying. I have the documentation of what they were trying, and no one exact set is represented by what I got when I got this set. And I didn't, well, I tried to make it work with the modern allocations. It just wouldn't work, so I just left it what it was.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've only ever attempted to operate the pre-war sets we have on modern channel 3, just because it's not worth messing with it. Interesting feature of the RCA sets. One of the problems they had was they used a 6J5 for an oscillator, and in order to get it to work, they have a separate tap on the filament transformer. I think they run the filament at 6.8 volts. So that shows how desperate they were to get the thing to work.
I can add one thing to that is I have a pre-war Capehart FM radio, and it used a 6J5, and I found I got better results finding one that had a ceramic base rather than the phenolic base or Bakelite base.
Well, you were supposed to use the ceramic bases, and my set does have one.
It does, is it? That's good.
But I had to buy it.
Amazing. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Well, then why don't we move on to Mike's presentation? He's going to tell us about the 2025 IEEE milestone ceremony.
Yeah, we'll see if I can do an even worse job of sharing the screen.
That mine had to be going to be hard to beat mine.
Well, I just want anyone new who wants to do a presentation that we don't stone people that can't share the screen. But let's see if, wow. Is that all coming up on yours? I'm supposed to decide, I guess, which screen.
Not yet, Mike. Just keep trying. Yes, it's coming now.
Okay. And I want to change which screen it is, because I am on the other one. So you're seeing the one with all the pieces on the side there?
Now, full screen with the IEE milestones.
Okay, then it is the right one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I was fortunate enough to attend. If anyone's ever heard of the IEEE milestones, it's dedications to basically the location and that some major event in electronic and electrical engineering might have taken place. And when I heard this is what the lobby at Bell Labs looks like, and you can see they're used to getting awards. They're all over the place, and they don't seem to want to add any right now to this is all their Nobel Prizes listed on that wall. But these milestone markers, this is an example of a couple of them. One for 2-channel audio, and the one on the top was for the radio circuit, the Nutridyne. And that's one that I got to take part in as a historian, volunteer. And when I heard that this one was going to be happening at Bell Labs, I've always wanted to get up there to see what they have in the place in the way of their museum. And when I had taken part in some other things, I had gotten to meet some of the people. This was the one for the Hazeltine Nutridyne circuit, and I got to be the historian, and I made a PowerPoint presentation and brought some artifacts for the people to see there. And then when they started their traveling museum of Armstrong artifacts, I was the one who donated some of the artifacts. That's on the top left picture is Armstrong's prototype for the 6-tube super het radio.
Picture hasn't changed.
We're not seeing the pictures.
Then I am on the wrong screen. Okay, so let me back up a little bit and see how we can do that. If I turn this off. Nope. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do, don't get scared of the dog. Let's see.
Okay, now we're seeing a different picture.
Yeah, I've got to try to drag this one over. Yeah. Let's see.
Several hundred milestones have been placed as on screen.
Okay, good. Then we're in a place that I can work with. So this is the milestone event that I was at, and then this is the Armstrong Traveling Museum that they have now, and it's got some of my things in it. So I'd met a number of people, so I pulled as many strings as I could to get an invitation because they told me that the limited number of seats were taken. So I guess just to stop me from whining about it, they got me in there. Maybe somebody canceled, but this is the what they call the Pyramid Building that's at Bell Labs now, and the older construction is the buildings that you see in the background, and that Pyramid Building connects all of these other buildings together. And actually now I should say it's called Nokia Bell Labs because they're the owners now. And that's the lobby coming in. Once you get past there, it's a pretty dramatic building. That's behind that. If you walk a little past that lobby area, I guess they can meet up with people there, and there's a cafeteria in that area, and a lot of air. And I had to include this picture too, because this is down one of those hallways. And I couldn't help but think of a number of captions for this building. Like one would be, okay, we're all scientists. On it. When I count to 3, everybody slam your door at the same time and we'll see what happens to the building here. Or nope, nobody goes to lunch for another 2 minutes. Just a whole lot of options there. The here. But anyway, then the presentation started, and since I was rushed in kind of at the last minute, I had no idea really what the presentations were for, and it wasn't for really older stuff like we would know about, but these are the 7 milestones that were being presented: molecular beam epitaxy, fractional quantum Hall effect, convolutional neural networks, Belmac 32, super resolution fluorescent microscopy, charge coupled devices, and Project Echo and Telstar. And we'll go in just a little bit to these, just to show what it was about. But the, let's go to this one. This is the way they now can implant molecules onto the substrate in these massive ICs that they build now. A beam fires the molecule, and you can see they're being laid in place onto the substrate in that top left picture. And they use these effusion cells as guns to fire the beams. And on the far right picture, you can see that it's a lot more complicated than you can see in the picture here. The other one is the fractional quantum Hall effect, which whenever someone says quantum effects and things like that to me, I have to wonder if the cat's really in Schrodinger's box or if my next slide's going to be empty. Oop, empty. But there it is. Fractional quantum Hall effect is they're working with single sheet graphene. And when they, from what we used to understand in physics, if you wanted to change a level of an electron in an atom, it went up by an integer, went up to 1 level, 2 levels, but it didn't go up in fractional levels. And apparently that's not true anymore. They can go up a fraction of a level. And the way the man described it that was speaking, at that fractional level, the electron cloud is like a liquid, he said. And when they move this liquid around, it's got 0 resistance. And he explained that they do something with, they're investigating doing something with putting plugs in. And then when you put a plug in, it would have some quantum effect happening somewhere else in the graphene. And so opposed to having to wait for that nasty amount of time to move an electron around, it just instantly happens somewhere else in their circuit. All I could think of when I say that is like Einstein said, it's spooky physics.
So you think, Michael, sorry to interrupt, do you think they're entangled? Did they say entanglement?
I didn't get that in his description, but it could be, sure. I guess if they're doing anything with a quantum effect like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They're getting entanglement, and so that they can actually have an instantaneous reaction on the other side and entangled particles.
Yeah.
Well, it's no particles, it's matter waves.
Right. So the next thing was convolutional neural networks, which is something like when your computer can identify a picture of a dog, it's because it's seen thousands of pictures of dogs, and then it can do this learning via filter optimization, and then decide that, yeah, that must be a dog. I may be getting that wrong too, but that's my interpretation from what they said there. I'm not certainly an expert on any of these things, but I have to do this to get to the reason I went to look at their museum. So after that was a pretty neat presentation about the Belmac 32, which I had never heard of before, but it was their groundbreaking microprocessor when everyone was still using 8-bit. They and a few other companies went right to 32-bit. And the Belmac one apparently was the best, but it was never one put for sale in other products, but was used by the telephone companies. And this is a picture of the team that they had there, showing all the people who, or most of the people who worked on it, and some pictures of the actual circuitry that they were working with. This man, Steve Kang, in the early 1980s, this would have been 1982, he was the lead engineer. And he said his toughest job was at 3:30 in the morning, he would get up, go to the labs, and plan out the work project for each of those employees every day. And as soon as their day was over, he'd go home and get ready to start again. And when they got to the end where they were going to actually look at everything that was laid out into the chip, they ended up with a 20-foot by 20-foot mosaic. The biggest printer they had was just a little bit bigger than legal size. So they are all sections taped together. And then everyone was given assignments to take their shoes off, crawl around the pictures, and trace out whatever they were looking for in their assignment to make sure it was really going to where it was supposed to go. So that was a pretty neat piece of history. I'm sure since 1982, they figured out much better ways to do that than crawling with your shoes off. The next one they did was this fluorescent microscopy. And they've actually come up, just like the quantum effect things or stuff that isn't what the physics was way back when. They found a way to get higher resolution than is imposed by the diffraction limit on optical microscopy. And it's a combination of techniques that, I'm sure there's stuff on the internet about, but I didn't get into that, and they didn't get too deep into it either. Let's see. And then the one that we would all be more familiar with for TV related items is the charge coupled device for digital imaging. That looks familiar. And then the last thing was the Project Echo and Telstar that led to the satellite communications. In their little museum area, they have what I assumed was a Telstar mock-up up in the ceiling on a wire, and that's a blow up with the background subtracted. And I was saying this is a pretty good deal they did. You could see what looks like solar cells and a little antenna. And when they had a chance to listen to one of their museum people, he told us that actually is a real Telstar. It was just never used. And he told us the story of the initial transatlantic broadcast on relayed by Telstar was a situation where President Kennedy was supposed to come on for that 20 minutes and give a speech, and it would be picked up, I guess, in England. The time came for the president. The people in the control room were patching through a signal from a Chicago Cubs baseball game, just as something to test out ahead of time. And the president got to shaking hands, and actually, I guess they couldn't get him to break away, and most of the 20-minute segment was used up just by the Chicago Cubs game, and the president came on at the last few minutes. The other thing that he told us that was pretty interesting is the reason this one was never used is they were going to put up more satellites to extend that 20-minute window. It was the same time that they were doing above ground nuclear tests, and the first Telstar made so many passes through radiation zones that it killed the satellite. So they had to make a hardened Telstar, and that's why this one became surplus, because it was replaced by a hardened unit. So that got me into the museum part of things. and they have a lot of neat exhibits there. This is labeled the first telephone, but it's from his 1876 experiments, where the transmitter or microphone would be the speaking into the black cone, and there was no real the receiver part was just that reed on a magnet coil, and the vibrations of the reed was what you would actually hear. Not, it wasn't a cone or a drum speaker of any kind. The other thing they had was the desk telephone that Alexander Graham Bell made one of the groundbreaking long distance calls to Chicago on this phone. And then this one, it was in another hall, is a very handsome looking unit. I was wondering why it wasn't just a regular wall telephone like they were making at that time period, but it turns out it's a long distance telephone. You had to make a long distance call. You had to go to one of these type phones, which has that extra box down the bottom, which carries all the additional batteries for the local battery in that phone to make the long distance call. They had the first touch tone telephone there. This unit was from, I think it was 1964, and doesn't look anything like what finally came into production, but they did it there. And one of the early picture phones. This is a picture of the what they called an electrical digital computer, and it was all series of different relays, and they have a display of two of the relays and the battery power to show you just what's in that big array of components there. This is a transatlantic cable for voice. Earlier transatlantic cables were all for telegraphy, and this is a vacuum tube amplifier that was placed every certain distance, maybe some miles in the line, and it was hardened for long-term and extreme conditions for use. And it was finally replaced by the undersea fiber optic cable, this section from the first one in 1988. And it was able to do 40,000 simultaneous telephone conversations. And at the bottom here, you can see that the other one was only able to do 12 conversations at a time in the one that was laid in 1956. And that brought the docents discussion to how most of the things you'd see in the whole purpose of Bell Labs was to squeeze more information down at a lower cost and with smaller equipment. They had a number of display cases with, this points out that at the time, Western Electric also had retail stores where to keep their companies going, I guess you weren't laying cable line down in the winter, so they would turn production over to other items for sale right to consumers. There's a heater, microphones, and an intercom unit in that picture. And this one has a little robot dog with a camera on the end of it. There's a high voltage insulator, and in the middle a hearing aid. And they even made a small sewing machine that's in the bottom picture, and a early condenser microphone up on the top right. They had an early fax machine there that they have a sample, excuse me, picture that they were doing, can't see the number of lines, 100 lines per inch. So you can see that it was used in newspaper photo service to get a pretty high resolution picture transmitted over telephone line. And this is the early system that they developed for putting sound on film. They have one of the projectors there and it was marketed as the Vitaphone in early talkie pictures. And the star of the show there is the first transistor, which just celebrated an anniversary back on December 16th. And it's in a nice closed-in case. That's a zoom picture of it that I got on the internet. But it's protected so no one takes a little souvenir home with them. The other piece they had there is from the historic television experiments that Dr. Herbert Ives was doing at Bell Labs. And this opening day they had, it was Commerce Secretary Herbert Hoover on one end of the conversation, and he was picked up. It went from Washington to New York. That's Dr. Ives with the display unit. And this is the back of the display unit. It's one of the better pictures I've seen of this. And these are with two of the operators. So all those wires go to this continuous neon tube that zigzags across the front. And it would light up a little pixel of light wherever the contact was. And this is the actual unit that they had there. And let's see if I can get to the next one. It's just, I was hoping it would unlock. There was a padlock on it. It wasn't open on the side, and one of the other people with me was trying to talk me into just stepping over there and just give it a little push like it fell open by itself. But since I was a guest, I decided to be good. And this is the last picture I have of it that basically is Dr. Ives again and the unit from the face on. And you can almost see the little, in the continuous neon tube, the little marks are the connections to that contact wheel in the back. So anyway, that's what I was able to get out of my visit there. And I was later told that, oh, you didn't get a chance to go to the storeroom because there's tons of more things there, but I'll have to save that for some other trip when I can find my way to get in. That big building in the beginning, though, that whole complex, we were told, is for sale, that they're moving everything somewhere else, and nobody is sure what's going to happen with the all the artifacts that are there. But Nokia is planning a new location for Bell Labs. Anyway, that's my presentation. Thanks for watching. And I'll have to figure out how to unshare.
Thanks. That was really interesting. It must have been fun to see those actual ancient items on display.
It's neat. They do have an archivist that's what his title was, that actually took us around. And unfortunately, I wanted to see the presentations and do that, so time was split between a lot of things. I'm not getting the.
We have somebody some time ago sent us a ton of pictures of the television equipment. And so there's a page on our website that's got them, but all kinds of pictures of their various devices they used in their television tests.
There you are.
I've got a couple pictures myself. Actually, did you know that Bell Labs did a picture telephone in the 1920s with a mechanical television?
Yeah, that's what that last unit was. That was the viewer.
Oh, was it?
And at one point they took it from that initial display, and they set it up in New York in two different offices. And you could apply for a time, and you would get a ticket to go to one location. Your friend would get a ticket to go to another location, and you could talk to each other on the picture phone, on the big.
I have a picture here of a very different one. I don't know if I want to try to share it.
Yeah.
I just went down to the Museum of the Moving Image in New York City, and this is, I'm looking at the displays. I took pictures, and they had this Bell Laboratories picture telephone from 1927.
Yeah, so that's the camera side,
Mm-hmm.
and the then display should have been that other side.
They had several display methods. That matrix was one of them, but they also used just standard discs.
So the machine, it looks like this, and if I go, I think to my next picture, you see the other side of it where there's like a telephone receiver and I
Oh,
guess a
yeah.
display screen.
Yep. Yeah, so that would be a much simpler unit. You know, I wouldn't want it to be a guy on that other unit that'd have to clean the contacts because that'd be quite a project.
Okay.
Yeah, the contacts were actually foil on the back, and it'd probably be pretty hard to clean those without removing them accidentally. You know, that I've been wondering what happened to that. That large set was a revolving display at one time at the Hoover Museum in West Branch, Iowa, when I was in school there years and years ago. And I unfortunately got to the museum when it was back into the storeroom, and then it went to New York, I understand. Imagine moving that thing. There were 2,500 wires
Yeah.
there, and then moving it again. I'm glad it finally went back home to Bell, but who knows where it will go now that you're mentioning that they're going to move the whole complex.
Yeah, they haven't given any information about that. They were even worse in the Lucent days that a lot of this stuff was in some room, and that they made a luxurious office buildings for all those Lucent big shots that were managing the company. And my friend's brother-in-law was a doctor, and they had, besides their own insurance, they had an in-house doctor in this luxurious with restaurants and everything else. And they would do things like, well, we have to have a meeting, so we're going to all go to Hawaii to have a meeting. And then they would, the doctor guys would say to him, well, you know, all of you guys are a little bit older, so maybe you need a doctor over there too. And they'd say, sure, go ahead. And he'd say, well, maybe I should get there a week ahead of time to set it up in the hotel. Sure, go ahead. It'd be good if my nurse was there. Sure, go ahead. And they'd all go to have a big meeting there and decided on analog instead of digital. And then they came home. So it was as mismanaged an outfit as you can get.
Do you know?
Is that museum? That's the AT&T Museum in Middletown, New Jersey.
No, that's the Bell Labs in Murray Hill.
Murray Hill, okay. And by the way, your comment about AT&T staffing, that's how it was when I worked there in the 1970s.
Yeah.
If they need a ballerina, they just train a ballerina.
Yep. They there's a lot of members of the AWA and different radio clubs that are all ex-employees, and some of them have mentioned different names of the management types and said that's one of the few people that I could kill on the spot if I ever ran into them.
You point out that it's the 100th anniversary of the Bell Labs this year. It was established in January 1925.
Yeah, in New York then, yes.
And Mike, there is some concern as to whether or not that museum will continue. A few years ago, the head honcho of Nokia, when he was put under a little pressure by the public about the museum and the archives and all that, he made some crack about we move forward, we don't dwell in the past, and that wasn't all that well received, and they were going to close the museum at that time. I see it's still open, but it is at risk of not being a public thing, to say the least.
Right. Well, my understanding is it's not open to the public, and if I wasn't there for that event, you couldn't just come in and say, "Can I wander around?"
Yeah, they do have events where they will let people in, but that whole thing is in jeopardy, or was in jeopardy. I don't know the current standing on it. It was good to see the pictures. I haven't been in that building since the 90s. I used to get in there quite a bit with my work. I was out of Morristown, but I go up to Murray Hill once in a while, and I got a very interesting couple of tours through there.
Was it that pyramid building then, or is that newer?
I always came in behind that. I came in the back way.
Okay.
It was at one point that was heavily guarded, and they got to know some of us, and oh yeah, it's him again. And then we would go. But I was working there late one night, And one of the engineers goes, "You know how to get out of here without going through all the rigmarole?" I said, "No." He goes, "Come here." And he showed me my way down to utility tunnels. And you could cut through the utility tunnels under those buildings and come out in the parking lot where I always left my truck. So I got some pretty interesting views of what goes on behind the scenes in that place. It was pretty cool. Brings some nice memories back.
So
Mike,
the history of the building, it was built just after the Second World War when they moved to Murray Hill.
Thereabouts, somewhere in the 40s. I believe it was 43, but I could be way off on that by now. Bell Labs was very important to the military, to say the least. And if you look at some of the surrounding hillside, you can still see the remains of some defense stuff. Bell Labs that whole Murray Hill area was heavily protected, as was some of the places where RCA was existing.
The other thing that protected Bell Labs, this was in one of the books about Bell Labs, is that for years, politicians would say, we got to break up the Bell system. It'll make phones cheaper for everybody. And then someone would tap them on the shoulder, like from the Pentagon, and say, we need these guys for a lot more than we need cheap telephones.
Yeah, it's not about telephones.
So much of their research was farmed out from the Pentagon, was farmed out to Bell Labs.
Oh, the whole AT&T in their cost plus days was very, very heavily government contract. The amount of money they were making on government contracts, mind-numbing.
Mike, do you know if the color set from AT&T, the 1929 color set, is somewhere in that complex?
No, and I didn't have access to that one man who was acting as the docent for that day to ask him about that. He had a crowd of people around the whole time. But that's all. I have this other friend who like I said, got to go in a storeroom once. But I don't know. I can ask him, but I don't know if any of that stuff was labeled as to what it was, or clearly labeled anyway.
I wonder if it still exists even.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for a fascinating presentation as usual.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was great to wheedle my way into getting an invitation.
She going through the tunnel system.
Yeah. That'd be a long walk, I think.
Yes, it's a very long walk, and there's some very, very old infrastructure down there. Like there's still in some of the power service tunnels, there's still stuff from when that place was built, still in service, or was. I mean, this goes back to the 90s when I was in there, late 90s, early 2000s.
Take breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there till they spun off Lucent, then I did the whole Lucent Avaya thing. It was kind of a zoo.
So the question of the manufacturing arm of Western Electric and spinning off into Graybar, I think it was about 1928. They're still in business. I mean, we have from just a couple of miles from where I live here, we have a Graybar office. Does anyone know what the status of Graybar is in relation to the telephone company? What happened to it?
Graybar in the U.S., as far as I know, is a reseller and distribution outfit. I have no idea what became of their original relationship. In fact, when I was working out in New York, I used to drive by the old Nassau smelting plant on my way in the morning, which is where Western got the majority of their cable. But Graybar is pretty much a distribution house. I don't know what if any relation is left with the telco.
Yeah.
Yeah, also says Graybar is doing its 100th anniversary right now, December 1925.
Wow.
Well, feel free to bring up other topics if anybody wants to, and of course Mike's available for more on this.
For a few minutes, anyway.
For a few minutes, yes.
I want to talk to you about this offline probably, but for the National Capital Radio TV Museum, I just wrote a article for our February issue of our journal about motion pictures about TV and also motion pictures about radio. So we've got things like network and obviously network being there, broadcast news, even Hairspray in there about movies that dealt with television in some way. If you have any publication that comes out of your museum, we'd be glad to arrange for you to use that article somewhere or share that article with your members after it's published in February.
Well, we'd be happy to put it on our website.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, something like that. I'll talk to you about that directly once the article's finished and published by our publication.
Great.
I hope you see. Do you see our magazine, our quarterly journal?
You know, I don't. Could you put me on the mailing list?
I'll talk to you about that separately. Yeah, but
Okay.
we've got, I am a member of your museum along with a number of others, including I think one of the one from the Connecticut Vintage Radio Museum today, the T-shirt
Right.
from there. But I've been trying to work with our director about organizing some way that our separate museums can collaborate or cooperate in some way and offer the opportunity for members to know what we're doing in different parts of the country.
Yeah, I think
It's
that
a
would be a
great
good
idea.
idea. I
If
think
it
that would be
works,
a good
so
idea.
I wanted to come to Columbus next month, but this kind of weather shies me away from my home state.
Well, your Dials and Channels newsletter is very good. It has some really good articles in it. I've been a member for a long time. I got cornered at an ETF convention about 10, 15 years ago, I guess.
Brian, our
Yeah, Brian said you're going to join,
Yep.
so I did. So, and
Well,
I
actually-
haven't regretted it. I've visited the museum too. It's a really nice museum too. But
And
I really like your publication.
I've been in Hilliard once on a trip to the Midwest, and I plan to come back again. And that's on my own before I was on the board of the museum, our museum. But I got a lot of interesting things to share with you guys. And I want to try to beef up our TV collection at our place too.
The only problem is space with TVs.
Well, everything is based in our museum. We don't have the luxury of a lot of room like you guys have. We have an old farmhouse as our
Yeah, I've been there. We got the same problem, and we're in an old car dealership, and it's
Yeah, I know.
full. I mean, you can barely move around in the place, and
It doesn't matter how
Yeah.
big your
No.
big building is. It's going to be, you'll never have enough space.
You'll
Well,
never
we
have
have-
enough space.
like any great museum, we've got 10% of our collection in the museum and the rest is in storage.
Yeah, I'd like to see your storage building, actually.
Yeah. Well, come
Right.
on out.
That's frequently the best part. I mean,
Yeah.
we get people who come to our museum and want to see our storage building. They don't care about the museum. Well, what you got in storage? Can I buy it? Can I have it?
Well, we actually sell some. We're mostly about radios, not TVs.
Right. Sure.
So, Mike, question with regards to Bell and AT&T, because of the importance that AT&T played in the early days of broadcasting with WEAF, and finally selling out to RCA in around 1926. Was there any mention of that in the library of the early days of WEAF and Bell Labs participant in that?
No, I can tell you that a lot of it was there were a lot of legal goings on with RCA, and when the what was eventually called the Radio Trust was all put together, that AT&T was only supposed to handle things like the lines in between and transmitters, and they weren't doing much with the transmitters, and RCA was stepping on that work too. And eventually the WEAF, the experiment was, it was the first time they were actually going to sell time on the radio. Radio stations before that were basically there just to promote maybe their own store that owned the station, or the radios that company might have manufactured. So eventually, as those things started to get tangled up in court things, and RCA was getting more into the broadcasting, they bought the station. And it was at the time one of the best outfitted stations in the country.
Yeah, sure. In fact, that was when AT&T exited broadcasting altogether to RCA, I guess.
Yeah, RCA bought the whole facility.
And also, the importance of AT&T in establishing the coaxial cable nationwide for network television. Was there anything on that at all? Any exhibits or discussion?
No, there weren't a whole lot more things there than you saw the highlights of. I happen to be looking into some of the coax cable thing now in an article I'm researching about Dumont, because that was one of the things that held his expansion down, because television was a lot more ready to go than the coax system around the country. And what happened was that hurt Dumont a lot, the Dumont network, is you had to buy the line for like a fixed month. And with the amount of broadcasting they could do and the affiliates that they had on the line, they were only getting like 7 to 11% usage of it, and paying, I think it was one of their biggest expenses, like $1 million a year for access to the coax network. So it just slowly expanded out. And I think one of the first moves west was Pittsburgh and Schenectady, New York, because they wanted to network General Electric's television station to NBC in New York City. And they also went from New York to Philadelphia and then Washington. And then Dumont put in a second station in Washington. But no, that was a tight control thing. And there, it was another thing that involved lawyers and how much they were charged, and could they really do this where you had to buy the entire block of time.
Well, because I mean, it was quite a considerable effort going right across the country and establishing it by, I think it was 1952.
Yeah, you can Google it and get all the different maps, and it'd be nice to almost do an animation where, as they headed west and then eventually south at the same time. But yeah, it was quite an undertaking.
Yeah. So, so I guess there's so much associated with Bell Labs. There's only a limited amount of space and time to study. There's just so much.
Yeah.
You said a little bit about the Vitaphone system. I wanted to just share something with you because I used to be a professor of film, and I was an avid film collector, and I recently discovered a long lost Vitaphone short with the disc. It was sound on disc in the beginning. You saw it a little bit on a projector. You had a turntable in the back, which was synchronized to the film. And I want to put into the chat a link because, if you allow me, I have something on YouTube, and you will see the lost short and also the playback of the sound disc with that, and the scanning of the film, so you can actually see how such a Vitaphone short looked and how the disc looked and how we can actually preserve it these days and play it back. And if you want to look at that, people were quite fascinated.
Thank you very much.
What is the title of it? Which Vitaphone short? Because I used to follow the Vitaphone project.
The Evolution of Dixie. Which was long lost, and I found it in an auction. And people did not know that they actually had something that was long lost. It came with the film element, the exact nitrate that was a little bit decomposed in the center, but I got it all right. Everything is no lost frame and a mint disc practically.
What year was this?
1927.
Excellent.
So look at that. The link is right in there, and you can see it. And I give a little bit of an explanation in that YouTube video also, and then you can see the playback, and then you can see the whole film.
Wow.
And Western Electric was really on the forefront. And I tell you something, by 1927, it was perfectly worked out. When you play back the disc appropriately, it sounds like a modern recording. And it was really absolutely perfectly worked out with the equalization, playback, recording and playback equalization, and even the pressing that Victor did. RCA did not own Victor at that time. Victor was only bought by RCA in 1929. And Victor did the pressing on that, the Vitaphone disc, and it was just absolutely marvelous. The sound quality was way better than optical sound.
It was just impractical
Totally
because of,
impractical.
yeah. I've often thought about the post-production and trying to edit with the sound on
I-
disc.
I can
It
tell you
must have
what they
been
did.
nightmare.
Yeah, I can tell you how this was. The shorts were unedited. They were filmed all the way through, like from the beginning to the end with multiple cameras, like you did in television later on. And they edited together just to film. They had the whole sound recording cut onto the disc from beginning to end with no editing. And the film was cut through that and printed. And that came in sync all perfectly fine. But the moment you had to do a picture where you have multiple takes and you have to go from one to the other, they had an array of turntables, up to 10 turntables, where they actually had the film, where they had the sound elements for the particular film, and then they re-recorded that onto a new master disc. Can you imagine how many discs they had to throw out because of tiny mistakes that happened for a 20-minute reel? So they reduced the number of minutes to 10 minutes per reel then, so they could dub it easier.
Yeah, it must have been insane.
An insane undertaking.
And imagine in the theater when the film breaks and you have to splice it and you lose a couple of frames.
What you had to do is you always had to have on hand black film. So you had to put in the exact number of frames that you lost with black film.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember watching the early Laurel and Hardy talkies that were on sound on disc and seeing with a bad print segments of black inserted.
That's exactly what you did. That's exactly what had to happen. Otherwise, you'll be out of sync immediately. And also, don't you bump your turntable.
Do you know if they charged a premium for the people who would go to the theater to see a sound?
No, not necessarily. But what happened was they had special theaters that were equipped with sound and starting in 1926, actually. It was the first was Don Juan. That was the first sound film, which was not really a soundy, but it was a silent film with synchronized sound and effects. And so they had a big theater in New York, and they actually had this one equipped with sound equipment from Bell Labs with the first loudspeakers actually that they built. It was not easy to make a loudspeaker in 1926. And there they had special shows and they showed the main feature film in conjunction with all of these shorts. The Vitaphone shorts and before they showed the film at the main film was the main attraction for the people because these were the real soundies. The jazzing in 1927 was also not a real sound. It had only ad-libbed effects in there and a few little live recorded singing sequences, but it was mainly a silent film and people flocked to the theater because they wanted to see the shorts. And this was the main attraction at that time. And this is why Vitaphone in Brooklyn cranked out so many shorts because they wanted to show that off to people. And people went later on when the sound equipment was becoming a little bit more available and many theaters in the larger cities had sound equipment, people flocked to the theaters with sound, even with the worst films, only because of the novelty of sound, and all the other theaters were left in the lurch that were showing silent films.
You bring up the loudspeaker. I know a guy who is quite a collector, and one of the things he collects is old projection equipment. And he took me into his garage one day, and the whole length of the garage, up in the ceiling, was a horn speaker for a theater.
Yep.
Made out of wood.
Mhm.
And I think it was a high impedance speaker too, making it even more plausible because they
Yep.
didn't have the electrodynamic speakers in those days. So imagine that they would get enough sound for a theater out of a horn speaker.
Exactly right. But Bell Labs developed the dynamic speaker at that time, but they didn't make a lot. It was more on the experimental side still, and it was only installed in a few theaters. And it also was in a big horn because also they couldn't get out enough sound. So they had a curved horn inside of a big box, and the speaker came out of that, the sound came out of that horn speaker. It's absolutely correct. It actually lasted until the mid-1930s until they were replaced with other speakers.
In fact, isn't it another Western Electric or Bell Labs, the moving coil loudspeaker with Rice
That's
and
correct.
Kellogg? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. The moving coil speaker was an enormous development at that time. And but the problem was also that you didn't have the appropriate amplifiers. You need to have the vacuum tubes being able to drive for a big theater. Also, these speakers with the coil, they were not so efficient.
But it's also 6 months is the anniversary of Don Juan with John Barrymore, and
Yeah.
I think that was the first one that had the Vitaphone shorts.
That is exactly right. And Will Hayes was actually speaking. He was the censor head at that time, former postmaster general, and censor head at that time. And nobody listened to censorship at that time, of course, but he spoke because he was the head of the Motion Picture Association at that time. And he was in that short. And that's a very interesting short. I think it's still up there on the internet.
Yes, and with all the short Will Hay, all the Vitaphone performances with Giovanni Martinelli and Misha
Yeah.
Elman and all the stars, and even the New York Philharmonic with the Tannhäuser
That's right.
overture. It's all on YouTube now.
So in my short, The Evolution of Dixie, they had the Vitaphone Orchestra, which was composed of a lot of people from the New York Philharmonic. They were moonlighting for them. And you will see that in the short, and the short is just exquisite because you can see the individual players in the orchestra. And so I was trying to identify the individual persons, but I wasn't very lucky. Maybe you can.
Western Electric is always a big pioneer in sound reinforcement as well. In the 1930s, they were experimenting with stereo sound, actually three-channel sound. I've got some pictures somewhere where they at Hollywood Bowl they had installed a really big, at least for the time, three-channel stereo sound reinforcement system. I mean, it was really amazing. And of course, the microphones they made were some of the best. They still are pretty good by today's standards. So
I use them to this day. I have an RCA 44 that I practically use for all of my radio shows. And when I record my orchestra, the vocalists are always using my RCA 44 from 1939. It's the best vocal microphone that has ever been built. And we can't even reproduce it.
that is a really great microphone. The Altec birdcage mics that were sold originally as Western Electric and later Altec, those still sound great today.
Yep.
It's amazing. These guys knew what they were doing.
You know what makes the sound of the RCA 44, the ribbon microphone, so good were two things. The ribbon material itself, the aluminum that they used, and the second was the transformer. We can't get the same transformer material anymore to get that sound. It's incredible.
Nope. People will pay big money for a 44.
Yeah.
77s too, but all these early microphones, some of these guys really did some great work with them.
They did.
And a lot of the speakers, a lot of horn designs and things actually came from Western Electric too. I mean, that later turned into Altec.
Yeah.
So
I have a question to Michael, which is I saw in his presentation briefly the flash of stereo, but it was linking Alan Blumlein, who was working for EMI at that time. So what was the relationship with Bell Labs at that time?
That was just showing the relationship to the different milestones that IEEE did. They did one for him, and I just found that one on the internet to give an idea of what their plaques look like.
Oh, I see. But they were doing stereo with at Bell Labs as well at about the same time as EMI was experimenting with them in Hayes and Middlesex, England.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the museum about that.
It's
hard to even call it a museum. It's just a little walkway off to the side of the lobby.
Yeah, as I said, there's just so much.
To solve the problem of the warehouse having the more interesting stuff and more of it, there used to be an exhibit, I don't know if it's still there, at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago called In the Museum's Attic. And they wouldn't let you go back into the exhibit, but it was just a walkway where you could walk around and see things behind glass. And I saw some wonderful mechanical TV sets in there that I would love to get my hands on. They were gorgeous. Everything was fascinating in there. And it was like the most amazing attic that you could ever imagine.
Wow. there's a lot of museums you wish could do that, like the Smithsonian. Anytime I try to look, I'll see a reference to something in the Smithsonian collection, but then there's no way to access it. I don't know how you'd even start.
You'd have to talk to one of their experts there. I have
Yeah.
done that by email before.
I was successful in seeing some stuff from the Smithsonian in one of their warehouses. There was a guy that used to work there that was very helpful. He's long since retired. But they have the only other Western Empire State mechanical receiver. And I had some questions because we were trying to get hours working, and they graciously allowed me to go to one of their warehouses somewhere in Virginia. One of they probably have 30 warehouses, and look and take pictures, but it's not easy to do.
In Germany, it is a very interesting thing. In Berlin, they have also a media museum that is run by the state, actually. And they still have in boxes, in crates, the telecine machine for 440 lines that was working in with a vacuum encapsulated Nipkow disc. And it was a 440 line disc with many spirals, and they were running it at such high speed that, of course, they had to put it into a vacuum encasement. And they were using it to do telecine on films, and also in a little booth. They projected a light beam on, like you have, Steve, in your museum, and a flying spot scanner, and they used it for people. And they still have it. It's there, but nobody can get access to it because it's sitting somewhere in their basement, created still for years, for decades, most likely. And we can't get it out. We can't have a look at it.
I understand they were using a Mikau projector for telecine for a while, or it didn't have any intermittent mechanism. That would be fascinating to see that and make comparisons between that and what a regular telecine projector would do.
You know, I gave a presentation for a long time ago at the television museum when we had one of the first meetings about the mechanical system. I might want to bring out that presentation again and show you here, because that might interest you if you haven't seen it yet, how the Germans actually did a 440 line Nipkow disc for telecine.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I'll bring it out again. It's very interesting. I actually have the actual documentation and books for that. And I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to give you a presentation here.
I would really like to see that too. I don't remember your presentation because I don't remember that. I know that Don Lee did a similar thing in Los Angeles. I don't know how many. I think it was 300 lines, but the same idea: disc inside of a vacuum. Spinning at some unbelievable speed.
Insane speed, you know. And they used a mercury vapor lamp to get enough light through these tiny holes. And it was incredible what they did. And it only lasted for like a few months, and then they put it right away into the museum because the thing didn't work. It never worked reliably. You know what was really the worst thing was when the little pinholes in the disc were clogged, and you had to get into the disc and blow it open because you had a black line through the disc, through the image. That was the worst.
Yeah, Baird used intermediate sound process using 240 line system, and it was approximately 16 seconds from live camera, going through a development bath through the evacuated scanner. So that must have been a hilarious process in itself.
And the chemicals to develop the film, they were at a high temperature, and they were actually toxic because they had really toxic chemicals in there to develop the film. And sometimes, of course, because of the high temperature, it developed bubbles, and you actually needed a baseball bat to whack the machine to get the bubbles out.
Mike, I have a question about that neon tube display. I don't think I ever
realized that it was one continuous tube.
Yeah, it's a continuous back and forth tube. And I don't know if you ever noticed it with a neon lamp, if you know, a little NE2 neon lamp, if you have one side connected and you like touch the lamp, you get it to come on. So what I believe they did was just wrap a contact around uh every what would be every pixel.
That's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
how they made the connection.
Yeah, and I believe it is just through the glass, but like I said, I didn't get to see it opened up. So, but it pretty clearly looked like that.
I think there was a spring inside the tube, and then the foil was on the outside of the tube, glued to pasted onto the outside of the tube, little foil strips. I wouldn't want the job of having to do that precisely.
Yeah.
And
I
also,
wanted, I wanted to show you the picture because here are the springs, but it doesn't,
Yeah.
my camera doesn't focus. I have the picture here in that book. So it's springs wound around the tube, and whatever was energized at that time gave up the light in that tube.
And that was the inspiration, as far as I can tell, for Jenkins' invention of a multi-light bulb display. And he still used the distributor, like in Bell. And then Bayer did the same thing in England a few years later. And there was another one in Germany, as a matter of fact.
You're talking about the 4-element tube?
No, this is multiple flashlight bulbs, thousands of them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me read you the caption that says down here for this thing, how it works. Detail of Bell grid receiver. Non-continuous spiral electrode running through the center and external electrode elements placed at intervals on backside of the tube.
Imagine the guy with the razor blade that was cutting the foil.
Yeah.
Put it on there.
Yeah.
2,500 wires to hook up to that. Because it was 50 by 50, and then they went up to 72 lines a few years later with the color display. But it wasn't that impressive. This thing got a bad review, by the way. People said, yeah, it was really neat to see it on 2 by 3 feet, but the 2 by 3 inches display was much sharper, as you might expect.
Gerhard, I think you have your zoom set to blur the background, and that's why you can't focus on the illustration that you held up.
Possibly. Well, it's my camera is also very bad in autofocus, and I don't know why the heck this camera is so bad, you know. But you know what? I'm going to give some presentations for you all from all of these books that I have. I collected all of these early books, and I have a lot of pictures in there that might actually shed some light on some of the questions that you have. And
this is a fascinating discussion, but unfortunately, I have to take off. Michael, thank you again for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And very interesting comments. Keep up, talk as long as you want to, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all. I also have to run, and I wish you all a very good journey into the next year, 2026, and hopefully we'll keep it going.
I won't have a presentation next time, but I do have some pictures of very early audio amplifiers, both Western Electric and Magnavox. So I'll share next time.
Fantastic.
Happy New Year.
And we'll just leave it for Dave to turn the switch off and turn the lights out later on.
Yeah, right.
Happy New Year, everybody. Hope to see you in Columbus one of these days.
Indeed.
Very good.
Happy New Year.
Last one out. Turn out the lights. I'll see you later.
Yeah,
Have a Happy
right.
New Year.
Is anybody still sticking around? Well, to anybody that might still be here, I wanted to add a footnote to James O'Neill's wonderful presentation from last time. We were talking about the disc recorder, the HS-100 disc recorder that was at the downlink stations. I wanted to say that I did some more research on that because it didn't sound right to me when they were saying it was all a flying head system. And I found that there's a BBC website about the HS-100. And it says on that site, this is not a Winchester technology, and the head spacers were in constant contact with the 3,000 RPM rotating disc. I also found an Ampex brochure that talks about guarding against disc damage in freeze frame mode, which is typical of freeze frames, but also of the way NASA was using these recorders. And because the heads were over the same spot on the disc for the full moon broadcast. And so they said that to guard against inadvertent disc damage in the freeze frame mode, there's an automatic manual unfreeze circuit. After 10 seconds in freeze frame, a flashing light in the console switch alerts the operator that the heads should be stepped. After 15 seconds in freeze, the heads will automatically be stepped unless the operator actuates the manual override switch. This feature can be defeated if desired. So I'm assuming that NASA or the people at the downlink station overrode that, and then they just didn't mind about any disc damage. I also have some information that is contrary to some of this, that says that the heads did indeed float, but they were microns away from the surface of the disc, and that there was an automatic system that raised those heads up every time the disc was coming up to speed or stopping so that they wouldn't cut divots in the disc. So the difference between complete contact, which is what the BBC guys say, and almost complete contact is almost nothing. So I wouldn't say that the idea that this was a Winchester disc or like a Winchester disc is right. It's probably not right. This was basically a contact system. So that's my footnote to the presentation. And I have the sources from Ampex, for example, that support that. Well, good night, all. I'm going to leave too, and Happy New Year.